Welcome back, guys. Welcome back in another video lecture series. From today I am going to start. Okay, so our ongoing lecture series will be go with that simultaneously, so you do not need to bother about that. In those video lecture series, today I am going to add again the more details about blood transfusion, where a question from CSI and it also be included, and that will also be uploaded today. Okay, so you don't need to bother about the blood group series. And today I am also going to start a new video lecture series that is on pedigree analysis. Okay, so pedigree analysis, I am going to talk about this in very much details. It will be divided into near about 7 to 8 videos. Okay, so today I am only going to talk about the introduction. So what is pedigree, why we need to compute a pedigree, and what pedigree tells us. Okay, and in the future videos I am going to talk about some necessary symbols that you need to know to before you we are going to talk about the different types of pedigree. Okay, and after that we will start different to know about different types of pedigrees, and we will come all of these things one by one. Okay, so let's start our introductory portion, where we are going to talk about a basic introduction of pedigree. So what is pedigree? Pedigree is simply a family tree or chart that is telling us about a particular family. Okay, so why we need to talk about a pedigree tree or family chart? So before going to talk about this, let's talk about that here the symbols. One here is a rectangular. The one is here is the square, and here is a circle. So these all things represents a particular individual in that family. Okay, and these lines represents relationship. Let me write. Simply tell us these things are individuals, and these lines representing us. Sorry, this line representing us simply the relationships. Okay, so why we need some kind of pedigree? Before going to talk about that, I need to mention you that this 1 2 3 written in Roman simply telling us different generation. Okay, suppose this is grandfather and grandmother, and here this is I and next generation, and this is next generation. Okay, so this 1 2 3 in Roman simply tell us the different generation, and 1 2 3 4 5 6 written in Arabic simply telling us the number of individuals that is present in particular generations. I hope it is clear. Okay, so pedigree is simply tells us about a person's genetic history. That means, suppose this person have a particular disease or having a particular trait. Now let's clear one thing, that in pedigree, if the symbol is filled with color, then make sure that this person have something that we are bothered about. You may be wondering that pedigree is always telling us about disease, but it is not always that, because we know that polydactyly is not any kind of disease. Okay, so let me start again. So we all know that polydactyly is not a disease. Polydactyly means presence of another finger. Okay, instead of 5, the polydactyly having a containing traits have more than say 5 or 6 or 7 fingers. Okay, that is what we are called about that. So this is not a disease, but pedigree also tell us the chance of offspring having polydactyly if its parents, one of its parents or both have that particular disease. Okay, so that particular trait. So we are here only talk about a particular trait and how it is genetically transmitted in our further generation. Okay, so pedigree can simply tell us that if two individuals are going to marry, so what is the probability that their offspring have a particular trait or disease that one of the individuals are having. Okay, by simply tracing back into their previous generation. So that is the idea. Okay, so I hope it is clear to all of you that why pedigree is needed. Pedigree is simply telling us about the origin of a particular trait or disease and how it is transmitted in a particular generation in case of particular family. Okay, so now we are going to talk about in what kind of this particular trait or disease are divided. Okay, so we all know that we have 22 autosomes and to 22 pairs of autosome or 44 autosomes and 2 with the sex chromosomes, okay, or 1 pair of sex chromosome. It can be XX in case of female and in case of XY it in case of males. Okay, so but all that particular trait or disease that pedigree can detect is simply due to a result of defect in chromosomes. Okay, so if the defect or mutation in chromosome is in autosome or the mutation showing in the chromosome is included in these 22 pairs of autosome, then we can say the trait it is autosomal. And if this particular trait is a result of defect or mutation in a chromosome that is included in one pair of sex chromosome, then we can say the trait is sexual or you can say X linked. Okay, here we are mostly bothered about X linked as we all know that Y is simply present in case of male, so it is less important. We are generally talked about in case of sex linked inheritance, we generally refer to them as X linked inheritance. Okay, so on the basis of this we can divide the traits or disease that can be genetically transmitted into mainly 4 types, although it can be divided into 6 types. Okay, so how 6 types? So this autosomal inheritance can be divided into 2 more types, that is dominant or recessive. On the basis of how or on the basis of what we are going to talk about in our next or future videos. Okay, and X-linked disease can similarly be divided into 2 types. One is dominant and another one recessive. Okay, so this is our 4 combination: autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, X-linked dominant, X-linked recessive, and along with that we have 2 additional traits, that is Y-linked trait, another one is maternal inheritance. So what are those? I am going to talk about in detail, so you don't need to bother about that. Okay, so what we have in our introduction or what we have in our introductory video, that is pedigree is simply a family tree or chart on the basis that simply telling us the biological relationship in families. Okay, or how a particular trait or disease is transmitted in future generations or in generation to generation. Okay, is pedigree can simply tell us. So two person when going to marry, they can easily find out the probability of the offspring will have a particular disease or particular trait. Okay, in probabilities, let's discuss one example of that. Okay, so I have told you that which the symbols which are filled with color simply tell us that this particular individual shows the trait or disease. Okay, so let's tell us that this symbol containing individuals have the trait or disease. Okay, so and also suppose that this trait is autosomal dominant. So autosomal dominant, in case of autosomal dominant, we can write in that way or that way both. How? You do not need to bother about that. I am going to talk about in our future videos in details about that. Okay, I am just want to tell you how it is determined that what is the percentage or what is the probability that offspring have that particular disease. So it is if this person is not showing the disease. Okay, so we can simply write it in that way. Now if you have a basic knowledge of Punnett square, so we can simply cross it in such a way. Okay, so as I have told you that when we are talking about autosomal dominant, this both genotype will be referred to as a trait or disease containing individual, then Punnett square simply telling us that there is a 100% probability that the offspring will going to have the disease. Okay, in that way, pedigree help us to determine whether there's the probability that the offspring will have a particular disease, and how this particular trait or disease is transmitted from generation to generation in that particular family, and is the trait or disease is controlled by a chromosome, is the chromosome is autosomal or sex linked or X linked. Okay, so I hope that this video is going to be helpful to you, and if it is, please hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe my channel. Thank you. In our in our future videos, I am going to talk about some symbols by which you can easily determine with the pedigrees. Okay, or you can find it easy to determine whether it is autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive or all that stuff. So before going to talk about this in detail, we need to know what its symbols telling us, want to tell us, that whether it is a man or it is a female, or whether they are as sex unspecified, all that stuff. In our next video, I am going to talk about that, what symbols refers to what. Okay, so stay tuned. Thank you.